And we're here. Good day, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, NoleFam, to another episode of the Novak Weekly Podcast. I'm your host, as you know, Marko Milenković. And joining me, as he does always, is my very good friend from Italy, Mario Boccardi. Mario, welcome, buddy, and welcome to another celebratory podcast. Feels like every time we do this,
we,
it's
we
another
are
one of
not
those.
we are not unbeaten anymore because Novak lost his first match this week since we started with this, but still
that's true.
he always won the title, and that's the
That's-
only thing that matters because
Exactly. How are you? How are you, man?
I'm fine, thank you very much. It's always nice to be here, and especially after after a great tennis event like this. So I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to talk again with you.
Amazing. So, guys, in today's episode, of course, we'll talk about yet another Novak's ATP Finals title and his last week in Turin, but also we'll discuss a little bit about the upcoming Davis Cup that we have actually this week. I was about to say next week. It's this week, starting tomorrow in Malaga, and some other little things with our guest, and it's a very special guest. I was just telling him that Mario and I were talking about this in the last couple of weeks. We need to get Scott to the pod, and here we have, guys. So I want to welcome our dear Twitter friend and one of my favorite, if not the favorite. Honestly, I'm not kidding. Listen, Mario knows me. I'm very honest and straightforward. I don't lie. Probably my favorite Twitter tennis personality is Scott Barclay, the founder and host of the Murray Musing podcast. Welcome, buddy. It's so great to finally have you.
Oh, thank you very much. I really appreciate the invite on. As you've said, yeah, I've been I'm a host of an Andy Murray themed podcast.
Clash of the Titans.
Yeah, so it's this is definitely my first time sitting in on another tennis related podcast about a specific player. I'm aware you probably chat about tennis generally a little bit as well, but primarily Novak focused.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely my first time sitting on guest starring on another player specific podcast, and I think it's only fitting because I will clarify early, very very early, because I know there'll be comments. There's always a little bit argy bargy between Novak fans, Andy fans, and any other fans of any other players, but Andy Murray, of course, is my number one. Novak Djokovic is very, very, very quickly in the last, I would say 3, 4, 5 years, really became my number two go-to. So I'm a huge, huge, huge Novak Djokovic fan as well.
Can he overcome that obstacle?
I don't know about that actually. Yeah,
challenge, and all that.
Novak's got all the hardships in the world, but Scott Barclay being his fan, I'm not sure you can quite get over that. But it's interesting as well, because I need to touch on this because you've mentioned there as well that you're doing yet another podcast about Novak, of course, after yet another win, and we make jokes about it over on Murray Musings about the fact that we started an Andy Murray themed podcast in 2021. Which is so far past the 2016 highlight
years ago
of Andy, and he hasn't even hit anything close to world number one since then. So we started our Andy Murray podcast at a terrible time. I need to give credit where it's due for you folks starting a Novak Djokovic podcast when he's still on top of the world and doesn't seem to be going anywhere anytime soon. And I will say very early as well, congratulations to you both as well for another great Novak Djokovic week. So yeah, very much looking forward to chatting here today.
Thank you so much. Listen, as I was telling to Mario, before we started this whole thing, I wish it was 2013 and not 2023. It would have been an amazing round, but I still think it's going to be an amazing round because, as you said, the way Novak is playing, I mean, he's not at his physical, peak physical prowess as he was in 2011, 2015, especially even in, let's say, 2018, 19, but when it comes to mental toughness, and I think he's hitting his mental peak and mental prime, and combining with the fact that we have examples in other sports, LeBron, Cristiano, whoever. I honestly don't think that any athlete has had this level, this combination of enormous level of fitness as well as hitting that mental peak, mental prime. So I'm just happy that we eventually started doing this, and the way he's playing and behaving, I still think that we have 2-3 solid years, if not great years.
So that was gonna be my question for you boys. I'm aware I'm guest starring, and I'm aware there's probably gonna be some questions for me. But
no, dude, chime in.
How, like, you think 2-3 more years of Novak?
Listen,
you think he can do 30 slams? Is that what you're envisaging?
Yeah, listen, I've been saying that for years, and Mario is a little bit more level-headed, down to earth than me. He's a realist, I'm an idealist, so that's kind of a perfect combo. Honestly,
realistic, I don't know, but
well, much more than me. let me put it that way. But honestly, listen, and we've been talking to, Julie, Pavi, whoever was on our pod, about when Novak's going to retire. I know a lot of folks have been saying on Twitter, he's going to retire next year if he wins Olympic gold. I don't think that's going to be the case. My wish is 2028. 2028, because first of all, I still think that he would be able to play at a high level, honestly.
Don't will he fellow players?
Listen, that's true. Listen, will he? I don't know. 2026 would be my prediction if I have to put it, a specific number. But to answer your question, the question you asked about how long will he play at this level or similar level, I still think 2025. He will be one of the biggest favorites to win any slam.
Yeah.
Honest. 2024, I mean, Mario and I talked, for Australia, he's going to be the obvious, front, runner. I even think for the rest of the slams, for every tournament next year when he plays, barring any injury, knock on wood, let's not have that. But honestly, that's my opinion. So as I told you, I'm glad that we have started this even in August 2023, because we still have, plus, even after he retires, there'll still be, some new project, which will basically be as, let's celebrate, Novak's legacy. I mean, we'll probably start even some at the beginning of next year, but okay, that's going to be a teaser. You guys will find out sooner rather than later. So sorry for my, longer monologue.
No, you did.
Mario, do you want to add something?
No, but I have my personal, beliefs about that, and it's, of course, an injury can come, and we wish not. That's for sure. But my feeling is that if still fit in the years to come, he will close his career at the top. I'm starting thinking about this, because I'm starting thinking that the main, at this point, the main thing that can, stop his career is motivation, other interests, family stuff. I think these things right now can play a role more than the tennis environment and things regarding, the tennis tour in itself. So that's what I'm starting to think. But, we know that when people and athletes reach some, let's say old age, anything can happen. And so, it's also why every victory, I think that for Novak is starting to feel as more special, because people can think, oh my God, why so special? 7th ATP Tour Finals title, 71st big title won by Djokovic, and it still feels that special. It's because he's fully aware, in my opinion, that even if he's still fit and clearly the best player in the world, everything can still happen, and you still may not know, what can happen in the future. So he's aware that it's time for him to fully embrace every moment. And I think he's doing pretty well. And it's also one of the reasons he is still on the very top, winning. I don't want to say everything, but basically, yes.
Basically, yeah.
It's
okay, guys.
it's one of those things where I think, for me, the big highlight for Novak this week, obviously, you know, all of his wins, all of his impressive matches. But like for me, and I'm sure it struck you boys as well. But like seeing the amount of times that it showed his children in the crowd, and his kids there watching him, easily at an age now where those kids are going to remember that their dad was the best tennis player in the world at that point, and one of the greatest athletes ever. So his kids know what he did and what he's doing. And I think, yeah, you touched on it right there, Mario. I think that might be, in the end, maybe what is going to be the kind of bringing his motivation for tennis down, maybe in the end, potentially, whenever that might be, is the fact that, you know, he's shown his kids what he can do. His kids have been there through all the highlights. He's easily the best of all time. Maybe it's then time to kind of move into other avenues, whenever that might be. But at the moment, he just seems to have that work-life balance perfect. He has his kids there, he has his tennis here, he has his trophy cabinet right there, and it just seems like he's got that fine balance perfect. But
yeah, that's spot on, because I mean, he was actually even talking about that, you know, in the past, because he I think he said it, you know, last year. I can't remember if it was at the end of the year or, you know, somewhere in the middle, but he basically said, and of course I'm paraphrasing, that he wants to, you know, continue to play at a high level and win tournaments, to, you know, for his kids to be able to see him do that and achieve that and be aware of it. Of course, Stefan is older, you know, he's been there for a while, but Tara is, you know, this year, you know, starting to see and, you know, to be aware of what her, you know, what her father is and what he represents and who he is in the world of tennis and world of sports. So yeah, but let's talk about, you know, ATP finals in this last week. But before we do that, guys, I would have to ask you, you know, what I always do, and that is to, you know, subscribe to this pod, to this YouTube channel, like this video, you know, share it, comment, all those things, you know, help with the YouTube algorithm. You guys know that we have Scott's, you know, thumb of approval. So yeah, as I said in the last couple of episodes, I would really like if you guys could help us reach 1,000 subs by the end of the year. I know it'll be difficult because we have like 5 or 6 weeks left, but if with your help, I think we can achieve it. So please do that, and thank you. So yeah, as I said, let's talk about the ATP finals. First of all, let's talk about the last night match itself. So Scott, as your guest, you have the first word, first impressions, you know, what strikes you the most, and whatever you feel, you know, whatever you want to say.
Sure. I think I don't know if I sent the tweet in the end, but I think I had it. I was trying to summarize what I felt about it. And basically, I don't think that Novak Djokovic would have become, because I do think, and again, I'm not just saying this because I'm sitting on Novak Djokovic podcast. I do think he's the greatest tennis player of all time. I don't think he would have become as great as he is if he didn't learn from mistakes and from errors, and like learn every time that he failed, because he's failed quite a bit in his career. And I don't think he would have become this god player that he has if he hadn't taken all the times that he, you know, failed to win a match, you know, failed to win a big title, and learned from it immediately. And this tournament is such a perfect encapsulation of it. It was bookended like so wonderfully well from that epic match against Sinner at the start of the week. And then now we saw this entirely like clinical performance. Yeah, you could argue that maybe Jannik Sinner wasn't at his best in that match last night. I don't know if you guys would agree with that, but maybe the nerves got to him, maybe the kind of the moment got to him, maybe the pressure.
A little bit out.
Yeah, like maybe like the pressure of knowing that he beat Novak earlier in the week, and you know, he did, I'm sure we might talk about it as well, did have a chance to eliminate Novak if he'd chosen to lose that. So that's a topic. If he'd lost a match in the middle of the week because he was already through, and knowing that, maybe that played on his mind as well. I don't know if he was asked about that, but Novak was just clinical. Like that's how we describe that match last night. And it's one of those things where Novak was just playing with, like, I guess, like pressure free, I guess, and that's when he's at his most dangerous. He's came onto the court here knowing that he lost to Yannick at the start of the week, knowing that Yannick's going to be playing in front of a home crowd in a big final. This is his chance to win yet another big title, and he did it. And he did it in such a clinical straight sets fashion. Very, very impressive from him.
Yeah, Mario, we were, texting, last week about his performances in the round robin stages, and he honestly, as opposed to Paris, which was actually the tournament that I said, he wouldn't be that interested in. Of course, he struggled there as well, but it was some, stomach issues or whatever. We already talked about it. During this first couple of days, honestly, he wasn't looking that good. But when he reached those semifinals, which, as Scott alluded to, and you guys probably know, that Yannick Sinner helped him do that. And we needed that, honestly. So thank you, Yannick. He played almost flawlessly in the last two matches. I mean, that clash against Alcaraz in the semis was like perfection. He started the final against Sinner. I mean, the first set was like superb. He again, started to struggle a little bit, in the second, but again, near perfect match from him. So how would you describe it? How you go from, I don't want to say zero to hero, but how do you switch, that how do you press that switch or turn it on and off basically whenever you want to?
First of all, I have to say that I guessed right in the prediction. I was pretty sure in the past weeks, as I was telling you, that Novak Djokovic would have won, but not as an undefeated player like he did last year. And that happened. But it's also because, in my opinion, this year the field was stronger than last year.
Yes.
So
100%.
Novak needed 100% in every match. So when he has been at, let's say 75, 80% of the level, he has been engaged in battles, dropped a set, maybe got beaten, for example, by Sinner in the round robin. But it's also, we also have to give the right credit for his opponents, which have played very, very well in this tournament. And they have deserved to get these close matches against him, or maybe even a win. But yeah, after that, I also had the feeling that Novak Djokovic in the semifinals will take his level to the moon. And that happened. For me, the two matches have been pretty similar, because in both the semifinal and the final, we've seen, let's say, a clinical first set, in which clinical is really the right word. In both cases, then there has been a second set in which both Carlos and Yannick tried to came back after falling down a break, tried to to stay in the match, but really nothing to do against a player which surprises, because it is like that. The field this year was, in my opinion, stronger than in the past couple of years, but still, beside Djokovic, all the other players to win the ATP Finals need to really challenge themselves and the mental aspect and physical aspect of the game from Sunday to Sunday. While Djokovic is, still has to play at very good level, but he can make that step. I don't want to say whenever he wants, because sometimes it cannot happen, but you feel that he's able to take his tennis to another kind of level, and that's amazing. Amazing, because you struggle to feel that it's all. You see the round robin stage and you think, I don't know, he's playing well, but not maybe well enough to winning, and then he produces in semis and finals, according to the ratings that we've seen on the internet, respectively the fourth and the first best performances anyone has played this year. And that speaks a lot about himself.
Yeah, I mean, yesterday 13 aces, 0 double faults, first serve percentage 70%, first serve points won 91%. I can't remember who wrote that tweet. Maybe it was you, Scott. Like, a lot of information in the last 48 hours. Can't remember everything, but somebody wrote that Novak might be the best server in the world right now, which is something that, if you said 10 years ago, like, everyone would laugh at you. What do you think of that? What do you think of that?
I think that's a fair, definitely a fair argument. I think it's also one of those. As you say, if you take us back to like early on in Novak's career, and I'm talking about like 2010, even, like, if you compare his serving like then to his serving now, and this is something that I've chatted about quite recently, like his service stance at the start of his career. I don't know if you really remember it. If people watching, people listening can, like, if you want to go and look it up. His serving stance at the start of his career was almost like really robotic. It was like really kind of like angular. His arm would come back, and like it was a very
back as well. I mean, that guy. I can't. Sorry to interrupt. I don't know the name of the guy. The guy behind the Big Three, tennis account. He's been doing a little analysis a couple of weeks ago on that. Novak's evolution when it comes to his tennis serving stance. So go on.
No. So it's that like kind of like angular, kind of like robotic stance that he had at the start of his career, and then I don't know if it was like a gradual progression or not, but he kind of made his game, because the rest of his game back then at the start of his career was still a very kind of fluid game. That's always how I've described Novak. I think a lot of people describe Roger Federer as a very kind of fluid tennis player, but I think watching Novak, there's no more fluid player than Novak Djokovic. He is like, I've always tried and describe Novak as like he's like a rag doll on the court. He looks like he's the only player who can hit these kind of like outrageous winners while like looking like he's falling over almost sometimes. Like he's like a jelly man. And the rest of his game was like that. And then you just had this like really weird kind of like robotic kind of service stance. And then like kind of over the years, he kind of adapted that, and it's like become a lot more fluid. And then I think it was even just like a year or maybe 2 years ago, he kind of even adapted it slightly more, maybe as a result of his kind of, I think it's been an elbow or wrist injury that he's been like struggling with a wee bit. Elbow, I think it was, yeah. And he's kind of even adapted it slightly more, but it's such a fluid movement now. Like the entire thing, like it looks like if you watch the serving stance, it's like he almost like flops over as he's hitting it, but he just rips through the ball so much more now than he used to. And he has become, I guess some people would argue, a serve ball, because he can just rip down these big serves like anytime in pressure moments, which is mad. It's mad. And maybe it's also a kind of combination of that, and then also maybe the younger players, although I won't call them younger players, like they're younger than Novak, but there was a moment in pressure when Novak got asked about these kids who were chasing him.
Yeah, exactly. I have it here on
they're not kids anymore, right? They're not kids anymore. They're adults. They're they're on the tour. They're winning titles. They're competing. But they are kids in comparison to Novak. Maybe these kids or maybe these players are just not as quite well versed in returning yet. Maybe they still need to work on their return position. Maybe it's a combination of that. But I don't think it's an overestimation at all to say that Novak Djokovic is up there as one of the best servers of all time. I mean, you put like some other big servers in there, of course, like Karlovic or Isner, but like Novak is just he deals with serving in a way that he deals with every other kind of pressure moments in tennis. He usually delivers. So that's probably something.
Let me ask you this quickly. Was Goran Ivanišević the major factor in Novak becoming this good when it comes to serve?
Oh yeah, you know what? Like, yeah, because I mean, he was known for his serving as well, wasn't it? I mean, you could definitely argue that for sure.
Yeah, he was one of the best in the world, during his time.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, yeah, for sure. I mean, I guess you could possibly argue that. I mean, I don't even know if people were really like bigging up Novak's serve even like in 2019 up until 2020. 2020 was kind of when people really started noticing, oh my God, this guy is, the rest of his game, we've always yelled and shouted about that, but he's never been the best spot server. And now you would probably say he is. He's also kind of got that way, and like people will hate this, but he's also kind of got that kind of technique that was a little bit like Roger Federer's technique, where like I know.
Yeah, we're gonna have amazing quotes.
I know.
From this spot.
I know. You knew when you invited me on. Come on now. But like with Roger's technique, everyone screamed and yelled about it because it was such a picture service technique.
Effortless, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it looked exactly the same every time he hit it. So people didn't know where the serve was going because he did the same technique. But Novak now has that too. And he's kind of adapted that like into his game where you just don't know where he's sending it, you know? And so it's less, I don't know, maybe you would say like Goran as came along kind of adapted it, but like Goran was probably known more for his like, I guess maybe his power or his strength.
That's true.
Whereas Novak, I feel like he's got that, of course, but like it is more of a spot serving now that he's got. So I don't know. Maybe you could argue that. But you'd have to ask somebody more well versed than me.
Mario, was there any point during last night's match where you actually thought that, Sinner might, take this?
Because it's I have to say.
Hey, he's Italian, he has to pretend.
Probably against any other player. On 6-3, it was maybe 3-2. Sinner had 2 break points. Against any other player, I would have thought, if he breaks back here, who knows what can happen next? And maybe we would have seen, just to make a parallel that everyone knows, just in terms of the scoreline, something like, Cincinnati final, but not against Djokovic. Because, first of all, I knew that he was going to serve really well in those 2 break points. And the fact is that against Djokovic, you always feel like you have to overdo things in order to beat him or even to cause him, some doubts. And that's one then brings you to, let's say, maybe not play 100% when you have one chance, or rush in some moments. And you have this kind of feeling when you play against him. And even after that first set, Djokovic was untouchable on serve. So when you all of a sudden have, let's say, love 30 or 2 break points, you start to have the feeling, okay, it's now or never, or I do this now, or he's not going to leave me any other chance. And you already know that, and you unconsciously you start to maybe rushing a little bit or overdo something. I was thinking, for example, the 30-all point that Sinner missed that forehand, it was 4-3. And Sinner would have had, a chance to break back and to set things at 4-game all in that second set. So that's why, when there's Novak Djokovic on the other side of the net, you struggle to have this feeling. It was different. It would have been different against any other player, in my opinion, because if he had broken back, and then, also with the crowd environment that can feed you, can make you feel more energies, you would have probably thought about that. But against Djokovic, I have to say that it's really, really difficult to believe in such an amazing and incredible comeback. He hasn't suffered that much in his whole career.
No, that's true. Scott, how good was that 7th game in the second set? 24 points, two break points saved by Yannick, 15 minutes and something, I think it lasted.
Just outrageous, just unbelievable. So I think I missed like a portion of the first set because I was at work, and I was watching the end of the match. I was watching the second part of the match while still at work. and in the staff room at the place that I work, and I was just watching this, and I was like, there's only a few games left if Novak can finish this out, so maybe I'll be maybe out here in 20 minutes. 45 minutes later,
exactly.
Ended up leaving because of that game. That game was just, like it kept going on and on and on. And like, I think I tweeted out, I felt like countries had formed and broken apart in the time that game took to start and end. And it just went on for that length of time. And then, you know what? Credit to Yannick for pulling through, because that was like very, very impressive. And then you felt like when he held that, it was like, okay, like, now maybe there's a chance. And I think there was a chance, wasn't there, in the next game for Sinner potentially?
Yeah, he had 30 love.
Yeah, there was 30 love. Yeah, so it was like, oh, here we go. This is what happens. But then time and time again, as Murray was saying, like with another player, you might think, oh, this is a moment where like things might change or things might get a little bit dicey. Listen, as an Andy Murray fan, there have been plenty of moments that happened to Andy. It's broken my heart. But Novak has proven time and time again that like that doesn't really happen with him. He's that close to the finish line. He knows that he's pretty much there. I wonder a lot as to whether or not there was an element for Jannik Sinner that maybe he was a bit burnt out from the week that he'd had, like not even like on a kind of energy level, but like not on a like he was feeling tired or he was feeling a bit lethargic or anything, but like he'd got the win over Novak earlier in the week, this big massive moment, 3-set epic win over Novak Djokovic in front of a home crowd. Like he'd got that, he had that, he had that moment, and he felt like he'd already lived that time. And now here in the final, it just he couldn't make that happen again. There was no kind of like moment in there. I really don't feel like there was any moment in there that was like, oh yeah, Jannik Sinner is going to come back and win this in 3 sets after Novak had that first set. I don't know. Maybe you guys would disagree, but I just felt like there was nothing kind of in the air during that match where I was like, Jannik Sinner is going to do this for a second time. Like people go their entire careers and never beat Novak Djokovic in a tennis match in one tournament. Like
shout out to our buddy Gael Monfils.
yeah, for sure.
Your buddy, precisely.
My buddy.
But Monfils won once against Djokovic, even if not ATP Tour. It was in a lower level.
Yeah,
not in the ATP Tour.
Yes,
2004 or 5, right?
I thought it was 6. No, I thought it was 6, but
at
challenger level.
One of those things, yeah.
Okay. Sure. But yeah, people go their entire career and not beat Novak, in one tennis match in a week. And then when you do beat Novak, it's like this huge moment. To do it twice in 1 week, like it's just really unheard of. I think Vance on Twitter.
By the way, has anyone done that?
Yeah, so what I was going to say, like Vance, who I think has been on an episode of...
Yeah, well, amazing guy. I love him.
Yeah, he's great. He tweeted out something that saying that, yes, it has happened before.
I can't remember.
It was Jo-Wilfried Tsonga back in 2008 beat Novak in the singles event. I think, where was it? Maybe in like Shanghai or Beijing, I think it might be. In the singles event and then in the doubles. He did it.
It's not the same.
Beat Novak twice in 1 week, but not really in the same draw. So
yeah,
as far as I know, it's never been done. So it was just I just felt like Jannik Sinner had a lot going for him this week. He had a lot going for him. He had the home crowd. He was playing his best tennis, but like it just wasn't in the air. It just wasn't on the cards, really. Like, do you know what I mean? Like nobody was really feeling that Jannik Sinner was going to do it again. Like it just, it just wasn't. It wasn't written, and we all saw how it played out. So
yeah, and you almost reiterated, what Mario said to me, before you joined, how important was that win that he achieved over Novak at the beginning of the week in round robin. And Mario, I'll let you know, tell us and tell the public, the guys who will be watching this pod, why is that not important, major for Jannik, especially for the upcoming years?
For sure. First of all, Sinner beat 9 top 5 players this year, and since 2000,
Is
only
that the
Federer.
most?
No, since 2000, no, but only Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic had done the same or more in
But
a
most
single
this year,
season.
right?
Most
Yeah,
this year. Yeah.
that was I
Novak
was asking.
can tie him if he beats him in the Davis Cup on Saturday in a potential clash. Can tie him with 9, but so far, yeah. And he has still the second most top 10 wins this season, just behind Novak. So it's important for him this year, for his process, that he has become actually a player for the big stages and the big matches, because he's won way more than what he lost. He ends the year with 3-2 against Medvedev, 2-1 against Alcaraz. He also beat Rune after losing to him in Monte Carlo. So yeah, he first of all proved that he is now a guy who you know you think that he is able to beat everyone, especially in the single day. And that win was of course important because he was the only big win he was lacking, let's say like that. And he got it, and of course he was the round robin and not the knockout stage, so the importance of the match was different, but still you have to consider his process and the fact that his career is not going to end now, as some people like to think by all the speech about the tanking and all this stuff. His career is not over, and I think that for his process this week has been amazing, unbelievable, because he had played a couple of matches in 2021, but this was his first career qualification at the ATP Finals, and playing that way, I'm always trying to think that it's not that easy as it may seem also to face all the pressure he faced this week, because maybe for some foreigner it may not seem that much, but I can assure you that I've never felt that many anticipation and pressure on an Italian player from Italy to win something or just to play good. And I also think that may have played a little bit difference in the end, because they both spent a lot of time on court this week, both Yannick and Novak, because also Novak played 2 times for over 3 hours in a single match. But mentally, this week has been really, really challenging for Sinner. And I think he handled well the situation in the end. And it's a week that, despite the loss in the final, makes me believe that he has what it takes to win a couple of big trophies in his career.
Yeah, and by the way, you wrote a tweet, I don't know, an hour ago, that the final between Novak and Jannik Sinner has been the most watched tennis match ever in Italy, with 6.6 million viewers, which is something I was not expecting. If it was a major Grand Slam, yeah, but probably because we had this that whole clash at the beginning of the week between them and Yannick winning. The hype was real. It was in Italy, in Turin. There hasn't been that many. I mean, we had a international break, which is something that football fans in Italy and all over the world care less about than when their clubs are playing. So probably that. But I wanted to ask you guys, both of you guys, there has been this notion in the last couple of weeks that we finally, let's say it like that, have a new kind of big four with Novak, Carlos, Medvedev, and now Yannick Sinner. Do you agree with that? And what's your stance on that?
Mm, I don't know if
I mean, it's not comparable, let's say like that, of
no,
course.
no, and I think
but
yeah, I think people are desperate to have more people who are not big Novak fans because they're out there. Did you know that? You know some people don't like Novak, which is mad.
Come on. That's impossible.
I didn't expect that.
Some people aren't fans of Novak. So hard. Are desperate. Even just neutral tennis fans are desperate for more competition, right? And they want to see the big battles. They want to see really hard fought contests. And anytime that even a hint of that happens, anytime that one does happen, you're automatically right. Okay, is this a guy who is going to repeat this time and time again? And I think we've seen enough maybe from Carlos Alcaraz to suggest that he's going to be a player who you hope that over the next kind of couple of years, it's going to really, see Novak in these big tournaments and provide this really high quality tennis. Although, we can analyze that a little bit. I know you've had Pavi on here who is always.
Yeah. Is Carlos going to win another major yet again?
The pot a little bit. Yeah,
I love Pavi, by the way.
He loves that. So he likes stirring that little pot a bit. But you do think okay, maybe these two are going to be like the two. Medvedev, Daniil, I love him. He
has the ability for sure.
For sure. I think, I don't know, maybe we need to see just a little bit more versatility from him. We need to see a little bit more consistency from him. And with Yannick, I think you need to put him in a Grand Slam and really see him across the best of 5 set format, because he's had his showings. I think Mario, you alluded to the fact that that he's had good runs before this week. Of course he has, but in the best 5 set format, we don't really know. We're not sure. Maybe it's a fitness thing in those situations. Over that, the best of 5 is just a monster of its own. And maybe we need to see a little bit more from him in those. I really wouldn't rush. But I personally really wouldn't rush into saying those are the big 4. And I know, people throw that term around a lot, the new big 4. But I think really for me it's a big 2 right now. It's Novak Djokovic and it's Carlos Alcaraz. Interestingly, you see Jannik Sinner this week. You're like, oh, hello. And you see Jannik Sinner when he plays matches against Carlos Alcaraz at the moment. Those two are just producing magic on the court. I just need to see that a little bit more before I'm willing to be like, you know what, Jannik Sinner, throw him in the mix as well, and you've got I'll add him into that. But at the moment, for me personally, it's Djokovic and Alcaraz for me. But I don't know, Mary, would you agree? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, my take that may be a little bit unpopular is that I genuinely believe that these 4 are way better than the rest of the field. It's the same semifinalists at Wimbledon at the finals, for example, and overall at the US Open we have had also Djokovic, Medvedev, and Alcaraz in the semifinals. During the Sunshine Double, we've had Sinner, Medvedev, and Alcaraz in the semifinals of both tournaments, both Indian Wells and Miami. In my opinion, it's more about the surface, the conditions. On hard courts, these are the 4 for now they are way better than the rest of the field. Maybe on clay and grass, Sinner and Medvedev are still behind in terms of the level they can produce. Then of course we have to make the difference between the 4 when we analyze. But honestly, I wouldn't buy the narrative, first of all, because I never liked the big 4 narrative. I'm sorry, I have to say, but
That's
not
fair.
because. But no. But it's not because of any of the 4, because I don't know. Since I am a great tennis enjoyer and I follow with most passion 250, 500 events than the rest of the events held in the year. I don't know. I get a little bit tired because for me, it just we have to say that tennis is worth watching if we have 3-4 players dominating the tour. And I find this pretty tiring, because I would like a narrative which is like tennis is great regardless of of the situation on the tour right now, because it's the occasion which should make the matches and the players big and important. And then of course you also have the great champions, which you need them for a lot of aspects, also to make people getting closer to the game. But I don't know why we have also the WTA had this tiring narrative at the start of the season, the big three WTA, and then you end up with Gauff winning the US Open. So I'm tired of that. I just say that right now for me, these four proved to be, way better than the others, especially on the hard courts with the differences. But why do we have to talk about that? Also, the big four are those four for me. No other player can make that.
Yeah, that's true. And I also want to ask, why do you guys think that people like those type of things? Why do they love those narratives? Because if we look at the numbers, and I know tennis is individual sport. I'm usually an enjoyer of team sports. I mean, Mario knows football and basketball are my two favorite
because
sports.
they don't like tennis.
Yeah, but if you look at the numbers, for example, for the NBA, for European football in the last 10-20 years, the most watched finals or matches or whatever have been when one or two teams were dominating, or where we had those 2-3 greatest players. In football it was Messi and Ronaldo, and that era of El Clásicos between Real Madrid and Barca were probably the most hyped matches in the last 20-30 years, maybe ever, on a club level. If you look at the NBA, it was when LeBron was on Cleveland and he was going against Steph and the Warriors. And it's the same case with the NFL and all the other sports. And of course in tennis, when we had the big three plus Andy Murray. So sorry, buddy. Love you.
Okay,
why do you guys think that people love those type of things? And how, I mean, of course media is a major player in creating those things, but why we as humans on a psychological level are attracted to those type of things?
I think it's got to be that for me just 100% comes down to that like at the heart of it, all these epic sports moments, all these epic kind of story rivalries and stuff like that. It comes down to our like intrinsic human beings' love of stories. Like we love storylines. We love a story. We love like another chapter. We love seeing another moment. We love turning the page and seeing what's next. And like we love to see that. Like we always have. Like we've told stories since the very beginning of time. And so like when you compare, like when we talk about like Messi and Ronaldo, who's going to be the greatest come the end, and then you saw like Messi winning the World Cup, and you're like, okay, well, so that's another big moment.
Don't about that, please.
I know. I'm sorry. But,
hey, payback.
And then, of course, and then you bring it into tennis, and then you see like the big three. They've, you had Roger winning 20, and you were like, right. And then you had Nadal passing him, and you were like, okay. And then you've had Novak coming through them both, and you're like, right, this is great. This is getting fantastic. And I think it's that. I think it's just like at the heart of it, like in sport with these rivalries, like we all, we're watching it on TV or in person at the event. But like these guys are like, to us, they're like characters in a story, right? And they've all got their own individual personalities, and we love to see them playing out too. And we're like, oh my gosh, you see Novak yelling, like screaming, smashing rackets, like bringing that, geeing up the crowd. We love that too. We love that personality aspect of him. Some people don't. Some people don't like it,
which is strange, but hey,
for sure, absolutely. But like the fact that people don't like him and the fact that we do. Also feeds into that too, and we love that as well. And we're like, we're taking some of that into it. We're taking some of those emotions, negative emotions, and we're going to use it to yell louder than they're going to be yelling. It's that big like sense of like we're all moving forward in this story together. Let's see what happens next. And it's just, I don't know, it must be, yeah, as you say, like a psychological thing. But we've told stories since like the cavemen, like exactly. On like writing chalk drawings on the walls. We just love hearing things like moving towards a conclusion. And I think that's why, Novak's story's been like fantastic for us to see as fans, but for other people, not great to see, but they're still watching. So
yeah, because how I was just thinking about this. How big of a factor do you think that FOMO is, the fear of missing out. Because if we take a look back at Cincinnati, we were doing our, actually we weren't doing pod. We started after the U.S. Open. So, I mean, I'm so frustrated that we missed that part. But hey, life moves on. I was, writing on Twitter that you saw those photos from his practices. I mean, there were people, jumping on fences and whatever. Because I feel like doesn't matter if you like him or not, if you find him annoying or arrogant or charismatic, whatever side of Novak fandom or hate them you're on, you still want to see, hear, be near greatness, and that's why I feel like people love those narratives. Because if the tennis world or sports world was like was Mario was saying, which is a pure way, balance, people actually watching the events, watching the sport because they love the sport, not because they're attracted to a certain guy or a team or a certain narrative. I feel like the sport itself would be kind of diluted. People would not be paying that much attention because it's the same the thing as if that story, if every day is special, no day is special. It's the same thing here. If none of the players or events is special, it remains like that. Do you think, Mario, that FOMO, fear of missing out, plays a part, especially in today's world? Because we know that it's a major
Oh yeah.
has a major effect on society in general, especially on younger population.
Yeah, no, that's for sure, because of course it depends on how much of a public you want to achieve also in the sport. Let's say like that. In Italy we are 58 million people, and 6.5 were watching yesterday's final, which is, I don't know, which is unbelievable to think. But why? Not certainly because 6.5 million people like and are passionate about tennis, but because it was especially, I have to say, especially a Yannick Sinner match, but also against Novak Djokovic, which in Italy is a star. Like, everyone knows about Novak Djokovic, everybody. He had also a lot of television appearances here, even one after the final. And so of course you need also these personalities, you need these stories to attract people to watch, because and that's why I'm always grateful to these people who help tennis to grow and to be one of the Novak Djokovic worldwide, but and a lot of other players, because there have been also other players and tennis legends able to do so. And in my specific case here in Italy, also what Sinner has been able to produce this week as a phenomenon, for me it's been well, I got the time also a little bit I want to say a little bit emotional to think about that, because since I was very young, a decade ago, 12, 13 years ago, when I started watching tennis, it was not the same. And I've never seen tennis being produced in bars, in squares, in pubs, and with people gathering and talking about that, and random people asking me something. And I'm grateful to live this. And so, yeah, in some way you may feel like, oh, please, why all these people who don't know about tennis are talking about that? Please shut up. But when you are cold-headed,
like me,
when you are cold-headed, you are really grateful for the fact that there are such champions, both from worldwide and for your country, that are able to bring tennis really into a new perspective. And it really challenged football, because there were more people watching yesterday's tennis match than Italy against Macedonia on Friday. I will say that. and that's great to have. I'm nothing against football, but if you are supporting tennis, it's nice to watch that this sport can compete also with it.
No, and listen, sorry, Scott.
Sorry, I was
I was the perfect embodiment of what Mario was saying. I was not attracted to Novak through tennis. I was attracted to tennis through Novak, and that's something that those narratives can create, because you become a fan of a club or a sport or a country. This. You've seen it on Twitter and social media. How many people have started liking, following Serbia, coming to the country because they are a fan of this one single guy. So that's a good part of those narratives and a good storytelling, as you were alluded to. But now go on, and sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good. I was literally just gonna add on to what Murray was saying as well, in the sense I think it's also that idea that, like, at no point does anybody ever want to be like, oh, where were you? Where were you when Jannik Sinner won the World Tour Finals? And you'd have to be like, oh, I didn't watch it. Do you know what I mean? Or I wasn't watching that, or I wasn't there, or I wasn't, I wasn't tuning in, or I wasn't, because everybody in Scotland, of course, when you talk about tennis, you're like, do you remember when Andy Murray won Wimbledon for the first time? And it's like, oh yeah,
yes,
everyone remembers when Andy Murray won Wimbledon. Everyone remembers exactly where they were. People were announcing it everywhere, But yeah, it is, 100% that sense. So it's like, even if you're not, a general kind of like casual tennis fan, like at that moment in time, you got to tune in. You got to see what's happening in that big, moment of, like explosiveness in the world of tennis. You've got to be watching it. As you say, like, the idea that 6 million people were watching that in Italy last night is probably unheard of, right? But it's that kind of, storyline throughout the week of him having beaten Novak at the start of the week. Can he do it again? It's huge. It's a huge moment. It's a big moment. It's in Italy. There's an Italian player. Oh my gosh, I've got to be tuning in for this. So, I think you guys have hit the nail on the head with that. Like, it's not, we're fans of these players, but even like casual fans can get brought into the hype of not wanting to miss this big moment that will be remembered forever. So, it's interesting. It's interesting to see.
Listen, a couple of minutes ago, I asked you guys, and I actually, asked Mario to tell us why does he think this win that Yanni had over Novak was so important for him psychologically. Scott, you were talking about, let's settle down a little bit on this big four narrative. Let's see how they perform the Grand Slams, because as we all know, best of three is not the same as best of five. And of course, Novak, no matter how great he played in the semis and final, he still cares a lot more about winning and playing amazing on majors than on any other tournament. What do you think? Let's talk briefly about Australian Open 2024, which will happen in less than 2 months. Of course, we'll have a break in the tennis world, but how should I put this honestly? Because I remember asking Mario like a couple of weeks ago. Novak looks unbeatable now, and especially on when he plays Grand Slams. How big of a factor psychologically plays that part? That do you think that players think that he's unbeatable? Do you think that it's the same thing I mentioned? Michael Jordan and The Last Dance. When teams were playing against the Bulls and him in the 90s, they were heading towards the court, and they would be like, we can't win this. We can't beat this guy. Do you think that's a factor in the world of tennis, and especially in this current tennis climate?
Big question, right?
Yeah, long question. Sorry.
No, you're fine. I think I was thinking about this the other day, that like, to beat Novak Djokovic at tennis is one of those things that when it happens, it's like a huge moment now, and it usually takes something very, very special to achieve. Like, and there's been times when a player has played at their best and Novak has played not at his best, and we've seen it happen, and Novak still wins, and you're like, wow. That player
are you referencing Wimbledon 2019 final?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's probably.
I had to say that.
How many Roger Federer fans you have tuning in?
More and more, but more and more. Each coming
more. But yeah, like so usually it takes that, and then I mean, so I guess you look at the Wimbledon final this year. I mean, sorry to bring that up, but like, I mean, that was that was a number of different combination of factors there, like for Carlos Alcaraz to manage to get over the line there. And I imagine you're bringing up Yannick's victory over Novak this week as a kind of, okay, is this going to give other players hope? I mean, maybe for sure, but also
him especially, but
sure, but like maybe, like possibly. I mean, I imagine people will go and be like, right, let's analyze this match. What did he do to manage to get over the line here? I'm sure Yannick is now sitting, being like, right, what did I do there that I didn't do there? But I think it's difficult with that because again, like you, as I would say, like, you know, it takes something very, very special. It takes a certain set of circumstances to be able to beat Novak Djokovic at tennis. And in that match at the start of the week, you had it all playing out. You had a home player, you had a crowd that was on fire. It was the first match of the week. It was, so there was less pressure. It was just a lot of factors at play there. You had Yannick playing outrageous. You had Novak. Novak played well. Novak played very well in that match, but like maybe wasn't still like there. It was like 5 or 6 different like situations in that tennis match that it's going to be very, very difficult for a regular everyday player to replicate. So I don't know. It's difficult. It's so difficult to plan out for. And you hear all the time about these differences in like the quality of players at the top of the game, very, very slight differences in quality at the very, very top of the game. I think when it gets to Novak, it's got to be a big jump, you know? So I'm not sure. I don't know. It's just so difficult. I don't know if you disagree with me, Marion, but
a little bit, honestly, because I think that there are some players right now that even if they are away, that they are going to lose more than how much they are going to win against Novak. I think that there are 3-4 players right now that at least you have the feeling that step on court thinking that it can be their day. They can win. Yesterday, maybe it was a little bit difficult, but because it's difficult to enter the court again against Novak after you beat him like 4 or 5 days ago. Yeah. But overall, for example, I think that even the win Yannick got, which has really amazed me because Novak had more winners, had fewer unforced errors than Yannick that day, and still somehow Yannick managed to pull the win. Even the serving stats Novak had were quite good, and I think that there is now a strict group of players that at least I feel like enter the court thinking, okay, I know that, you know, he's probably the head-to-head is going still to be in his favor. He's going to win the most matches we are going to play, but still I think that I can do the job. And that's also why I think that even if Novak is winning a lot and most of the big titles, I feel the tour is pretty okay still, because we've seen some very good matches also involving Novak. Let's think about this round robin match, also the Cincinnati final, the Wimbledon final, and there have been some other during the year. Holger Rune also pushed Novak really hard in the 2 matches, even if he still lost both of them here in Paris and Turin. So I think that the thing is, being this an individual sport, I think that there's room for you to enter the court thinking, who knows, at least for these players, because we are still talking about, let's say, things how they are phenomenal players, even if they're not like Novak. I think that there is a group of players which thinks that he has a chance in the single match. Then of course, I mean, then, you know, the level speaks for himself. Novak is super, you know, he's incredible and wins the most matches. But I feel that in terms of beliefs, right now the tour is not in a very bad state, even if Novak is managing still to win most of the matches they played against each other.
Guys, you probably saw this Vika Zarenka's tweet. I don't want to hear your take on it. I'm reading the tweet. Novak's ability after a loss to elevate his level of play and determination to win no matter what is the most underrated thing, in my opinion, I have seen in tennis. Do you agree with her? What's your overall take on it?
I think it's probably a fair assessment. It's something that I feel like people have pointed out quite a bit. I think Mary, you maybe converted me with your argument there in terms of like, I think maybe it's less about people thinking Novak's unbeatable. So maybe these players is a relatively small crop of players, but they're walking on court with belief and then finishing it still on the losing side of it. It's like, well, yeah, I still believe that I could beat him. And yeah, I still lost, but I'm still going to believe that I can beat him next time as well. And I think you're maybe going to have that with Carlos Alcaraz going forward. I feel like he's kind of got that mindset. He's almost like dialed in with Novak now. He's like, I need to work out how to beat this guy consistently to get there. But like it almost doesn't matter if players believe they could beat Novak or not. You know, you can walk on court, you know, thinking, right, I've got him. And you can have him. You can even have him in the match like multiple times. Like you can have him on the ropes multiple times throughout a match. You can have him like wobbling. You can have him on the edge of his kind of abilities. And yet, when it comes to like the finish line, you're still on the losing side of it. So. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'd probably agree with her there. It's maybe not. I don't know if I would say it's underrated. I feel like a lot of people talk about how unbeatable Novak is because he's kind of proven it. So I don't know if it's underrated, but maybe not talked about enough still. But yeah, I would 100% agree with her. You know, she's a pro tennis player herself, so she knows Novak. I think she gets on quite well with Novak as far as I'm aware.
Exactly. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with her. I think.
Yeah, it's a fair statement in my opinion. But yeah, just to close what I was saying before, for example, it was really great to hear from me after, for example, Sinner, after losing the semifinal against Novak, and he lost in straight sets, and he surprised me because he came saying, I felt that this has been the closest match we've played so far. Even if last year I won 2 sets and this year not, I think that I'm getting closer and closer. And that is, for example, one aspect that feels like I think that there are some players who believes that. Of course, we don't have to put Novak out of consideration because Djokovic has the same and even more qualities. He loses against you, as Azarenka says, and he's not fast, super fast, because 4 days, 5 days are enough for him to to really improve and win. I was also thinking about the only 2 times Novak lost in the ATP Finals final. He had flawless campaign till the finals. And I don't want to say that played a role, but that says that he always win in the other occasions. So when he had not had flawless campaigns till the final, then he somehow managed to play the best match of the week in the final. And that says a lot about how much he thinks about the matches he played yesterday, 2 days ago, 3 days ago, and learns and tries to avoid putting himself into the same situations. Maybe I won't consider 2016 because he faced, Murray, who was in best moment of his career. But even 2018, Novak had a flawless campaign, beat Zverev 6-4, 6-1 in the round robin, and then lost to him in the finals. The opposite has never happened. When he had some issues, he lost a match. I remember 2015. Federer played a flawless match against Novak in the round robin, and it was a demolition job in the final. He was, learning how to manage the situation, to exploit the other player's weakness, and also to bring some new elements to the matchup. Even after some days, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, guys, let's talk briefly about the upcoming Davis Cup. which is, as I said at the beginning of this episode, is going to be played this week in Malaga in Spain. Serbia is facing Great Britain, and I don't know if you've been, listening to what we've been saying the last couple of weeks, but when the draw came out, our take was that Serbia got possibly the toughest matchup. What transpired in the last couple of weeks, and with the withdrawal of Andy Murray and who was it? The Jack? No, not Jake Draper.
Dan Evans.
Dan Evans. Sorry. It looks like Serbia should take this first round, quarterfinal easily. So I want to hear your take on that, Scott. What do you think? Your predictions, and why is Jamie Murray not playing doubles?
Yeah, I mean it's a big obviously, it's still raw. It's still raw for me that Andy's not going to be playing this coming week. It's I spoke about it on an episode of the podcast last week of Murray Musings before Andy had withdrawn. And I said a lot that I was like, I really feel like this Davis Cup for Andy, it's going to be a big one because it's going to set Andy up well for next year. Come on, we need to start next year well. And then now he's withdrawn, which is not exactly ideal. But yeah, for Serbia for sure, it's gonna. It's a difficult one as well because I think there's arguments to be made that maybe even if Andy had played, would he have been playing the singles? Would he have been playing the doubles? Like where was his role going to be? But I think as you say, with like Dan Evans being out as well, I do feel like now Serbia Serbia were arguably favorites anyway. let's be honest. But I do feel like now Serbia are quite set, especially with Novak committed. You have Novak on any team. Like I don't know how they're going to play Novak. They can play Novak anywhere, and he'll perform. So. I think Serbia are set up very, very well for next week. I do expect them to beat Great Britain relatively comfortably. I think. I know that we've brought in Liam Brody. I think I saw that Brody's coming over, so that'll be interesting. And we've got Cam Norrie. I think if it's Norrie versus Djokovic, I think Djokovic has got that. I don't think Djokovic is going to be losing that. And maybe you guys disagree, but I don't think you will.
No. We're on board.
Yeah, you're thinking that's what's happening. As for Jamie, I don't know. I mean, we've chatted with a little bit in the Murray group chats. I don't know. Maybe they just feel like Jamie's not not in the right place for Davis Cup right now. I'm not sure. You assume that Leon Smith, who's captain of the British squad, is chatting with Jamie quite often. I feel like they probably all have a big group chat, or they all have their separate chats. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe he's ruled himself out. I'm not entirely sure. I haven't seen any quotes from Jamie on that him not being selected. But you know what though, on just a bare level with the injuries Andy and with Dan, I feel like Leon's probably done the best that he can with his team to set himself up for this. I just don't know if I see Great Britain beating Serbia and going any further. I think Serbia are set very well for next week.
By the way, how serious is the injury? Is it shoulder, right? I think I read that.
Yeah, it came out with quite a short quote on that. I don't think he's given any more details on the injury. I think he picked up in practice, though. Is that right? Like he picked up in practice, but
yeah, should be like that. But he only said minor injury. I have no honestly, I have no more details.
No, I don't think he's given any more. I don't think there's any.
No, I mean this is his quote from the BBC. I picked up a minor shoulder injury, which means I won't be able to take part in the Davis Cup. I'm gutted not to be part of the squad, but my focus is now on rehab and getting ready for the new season. That's what Andy said.
Yeah.
Can I say what Davis Cup always is a little bit unpredictable too, also because I was also thinking about the clash, and
Yeah, me too.
you know that I was the one who was saying Great Britain is the favorite team for Davis Cup title and not the tie. I was like that 2 months ago. Right now, I'm not like that anymore. But I think that what if Jack Draper beats, for example, Jere in the second tie, no second rubber. In my opinion, it's an even match at the beginning. Considering also the fact that Draper has found form in the recent past, he won a challenger title, but it was also a challenger with a very strong field. He beat back-to-back Nakashima and Goffin to win the title. He was finalist in Sofia, only losing to Manarino, which this year is well, one of the best players, let's say, because he is deservingly close to the top 20, won 3 titles. So it should be an even match on paper, and if things goes 1-0, then it becomes difficult to predict. I still think Serbia is the favorite, but I think that Davis Cup with this kind of format is something that even a minor thing can change the balance in every tie. For example, I think that Netherlands are going to be favorite in the quarterfinal against Italy.
Whoa.
Yeah, I think about that because they have I think they.
Well, is Sinner gonna play?
Sinner is going to play, but what about the rest? And Van de Zandschulp right now he's a solid player because in the past weeks played really well in Paris, for example. I saw something from him and it was really convincing. Griekspoor is playing great, and if Sinner goes there not 100%. But even if, let's imagine Sinner is winning that match, it's not that easy, considering both form. If Musetti plays Van de Zandschulp, are you sure Musetti is going to win? I'm not.
No, that's true.
So I'm giving Netherlands 55% in this, in my opinion.
I mean, that's why I love Davis Cup. It's so unpredictable. I mean, I'm still not over our loss in the final in Belgrade in 2013. We lost to 2 players. I mean, Czech Republic had 2 players, Stefanek and Berdik, and we were at our apex. Novak, Janko, Victor, Zimujic was still playing, and we lost to them in Belgrade. 2 guys, they both of them played their 2 single matches, and they played doubles and
yeah, but they were great players. Come on,
they were great, but
I think like just on the subject of Davis Cup, like I feel like Davis Cup is underratedly like such a significant tournament for Novak, right? Like,
it's his priority for the end of the year. I mean,
for sure. But like looking back in like the kind of progress of Novak, like everyone always highlights that kind of time from the end of 2010 to the start of 2011 as when Novak Djokovic really became Novak Djokovic. And right in the middle of that is the Davis Cup, right? And he's always spoken about that tournament being the moment that he was like, this is great. Like, I think, I don't know. I feel like there's an element of fun that Novak and the other players, I'm sure, and Andy's a big example of it, like that just playing with their friends, playing with these, countrymen, like just for Novak, there's nothing quite like that. And I think at that point in his career, he desperately needed that, because I think like at the end of 2010, he was just like, well, I can either continue being a solid player, or I can just maximize everything that I've got and see what happens. And that's what he ultimately decided to do. But a big catalyst for that was that Davis Cup victory in right at the end of 2010. Would you agree? Like, I just feel like it's
absolutely 100%.
It's like arguably the biggest tournament for Novak.
Yeah, I mean, winning for his country has always been, if not the greatest, then definitely top 2, top 3 priorities for him. I mean, for example, his 2 biggest losses, the ones I took the hardest were at the Olympics.
Yes,
it wasn't any loss against Andy or Rafa or Roger in the Grand Slams final. it was 2016 and especially 2021, which I'm still not over yet. I still don't know. I don't want to talk about that. Not because I can't take it. No, not because I can't take it. Because it's been in the past. But I was at work watching it, and he was dominating Zverev.
Yes.
He won the first set. It was 6-1, I think, and in the second he was leading
3-1.
Yeah, he was leading 3-1, and I was like, great, done. Let's get ready for tomorrow or 2 days afterwards. And then he stopped, and I still don't know. Honestly, what the fuck happened? It's like it's like in the Space Jam, when the Monstars came and took the talents from Charles Barclay and Patrick Ewing. Literally, honestly. So yeah, let's talk about it. What's your take on it?
Oh, sorry. I guess that Davis Cup, and I guess since we're transitioning very briefly into the Olympics as well.
It's a short segue.
You know if Novak wins the Olympic gold next year, how's there already there's no argument, but if Novak Djokovic wins the Olympic gold next year, come on,
the only thing that's missing
is how much pressure is he going to be putting on himself. I think that's what comes down to now. It's a pressure moment. It's for Novak. I would say probably the biggest tournament of next year for him. Because he is going to be so desperate for that Olympic gold medal. I'm very, very excited to watch him in that event, because I think we're going to see a Novak Djokovic under potentially more pressure that he's putting on himself, because he'll be so keen. He'll know that it's his last chance. Although, will it be his last chance? Will Novak be playing another 4 years?
Listen. I've been saying, he can't allow Andy Murray to have 2 gold medals, and yeah, we have to tie that at least. We have to tie that at least.
We're all holding out.
But the funny thing is that during the previous editions of the Olympics, he the surface was his surface. It was either a hard court or it was grass at Wimbledon. Now he's going to be playing at his third preferred surface. He's going to be playing on the Roland Garros. Rafa is going to be there. Carlos is good. We have all the other clay guys. It would be amazing if he won it. I think he will. I've been saying to Mario, he's going to complete the Golden Slam next year. He lost the chance last time. He lost the chance this year for the calendar slam. It has to happen, honestly. So I'm manifesting it. Listen to me, people. Novak is winning all 4 majors next year and the gold medal. Trust me.
I disagree.
It's dude, trust me type of stuff.
None of that's gonna be happening. I don't.
Hey, listen, I told you I'm an idealist, man. That Mari is the realist. Now, hey, realist, talk about it.
What do I have to say?
You have to say you're right. That's gonna happen.
You know that, of course. For sure, for me, it's going to be, I don't know, probably the highlight of my life. But no, talking seriously, I'm just unable to do such predictions. I don't know why. Maybe because there have been,
because you're level-headed and down to earth.
For example, I remember that the only time when I've tried to do that, and since Novak won the US Open semi-final over Zverev in 5 sets, I was in myself, now I really think it's going to happen. And not only it didn't happen, but it was one of the most painful performances Novak ever played. Also thanks to due to Medvedev playing an unbelievable match. So there's always something that into my head is like, okay, calm down. But this year we've got one of the biggest what if we ever had, because if Novak just went for a volley on that break point in the 5th set, Who knows what would have happened? Still, he would have had to win 4 more games, but it would have been, probably a totally different story. So yeah, the margins are really slight, but there's room to think that this can happen. I still think that physically, because the Olympics are always played right after a period full of majors, the French Open, Wimbledon, and then the Olympics. It's difficult physically, I have to admit. And after that, the US Open, it's just 4 weeks after that. That's the only, question mark. In 2021, physically, this schedule got to him. Honestly, the whole US Open, he was a little bit shaky. You can argue it was because of the pressure, because of the physical, not in the best physical shape possible. But I have to say that when you have the Olympics and you care that much about that, it's 4 months which really can brought you to exhaustion. And that's the only question mark. Why I always am realistic, let's say like that, about this prediction. But of course, talking about tennis and the way he cares about his body, he's able to do that. But it's that's the only question mark in my opinion.
Yeah, amazing. Scott, buddy, I have a couple of questions for you. Over here from Larry. A question for Scott. From what you know, how has the relationship between Novak and Andy evolved over the years? I've heard that they used to be friends in juniors, but I'm sure their competition at the top changed things a lot. I mean, we talked about that with Pavi last week, and he had his take. Maybe you saw it. What's your take on their relationship and how it evolved over the years?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I feel like so if people don't know, I'm sure everyone watching probably does. Like Andy Murray and Novak Djoković born like a week apart from each other, so they were brought up pretty much in tandem. And as far as I know, they've always like they always got on, especially in juniors. Like they played a good few kind of doubles events together, as far as I'm aware. Even up, I think their last doubles partnership was might have been in. I don't want to get it wrong, but it might have been in Miami 2011. Actually, it's when I think they played doubles together then. And I, as far as I know, they've always been close, like, or as close as you can be when you're two like big rivals, and when one of you beats the other one in what is it, like 7 Australian Open finals.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Don't worry. It's interesting because I think a lot of Andy Murray fans really don't like Novak. Predominantly a lot because of that, which it's understandable, right?
Yeah, it's natural.
Along the way, I was like, this is a little bit of a tandem from that conversation, from your question, but I really kind of became a Novak fan because I wasn't particularly a massive fan of Rafa and Roger, and Novak was there like when Andy wasn't, and Novak started whipping ass like Federer and Nadal like repeatedly, and I was like, this is what I love to see. Give me an alternative. This is great. So that's really when I became a massive fan of Novak. But as far as I know, like Novak and Andy have always been relatively close. I don't think there's been any time that there's been like a massive kind of like falling out or like disagreement, etc. I'm sure Pavi was possibly alluding to like there's been recent developments where like you've seen a little bit of sass from Andy on.
We talked about that.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially the IG comment.
Yeah, absolutely. It was on Instagram. I was going to say it was on TikTok. Andy Murray probably has no idea what TikTok is. On Instagram, yeah, it was on an old Instagram video. I need to go as far as to say, like, I really like don't. I love when stuff like this happens because it's always like super overanalyzed, right? I mean, we're talking about it now on a podcast episode. for me, I feel like Andy's just been scrolling on his time and he's like, I'm just going to make this little comment here. He likes doing this. He likes doing this on social media. It's one of the big things that I love about Andy. It's like he just comes on social media. He kind of drops these little tidbits here and there. He knows it's going to catch fire and people are going to be talking about it. And people are going to be talking about it. And people are going to be talking about it. Up until even recently, like what was it, yesterday or the day before, when Andy had a little pop at the CEO of Lacoste.
Yeah.
The Lacoste CEO, and I'm sure Novak fans, as well of which I am one. I need to stress again, big Novak fan, are loving that one too. But I really don't think that's a representation, and I really need to stress, I really don't feel like, in my opinion, that any of that is a representation of where Andy and Novak's kind of relationship is. Like, I really feel like Novak's not going to be like, oh, you know what? Like, Andy Murray's making these kind of subtle comments on here. Like, we're not friends anymore. And not that I really think they're huge friends. I feel like they're now probably just at a kind of like stable kind of work colleague point. I highly doubt they're texting each other every day. But if they're meeting each other, like, you know, at tournaments, whenever Andy plays one these days, I don't think they're going to be like at each other's heads either, or at each other's throats. I feel like they're at a very kind of stable point that they can be at. And I think when the time comes that they're both retired, Novak said I love Novak's quote about Rafa the other week. Like, he was like, I wouldn't say that we're friends, but I really hope that when we're both done, we can just sit and just have a drink. I think Andy and Novak are probably at that point as well now. Like, yeah, sure, ideally, we'd love this idea of them being best buds at the top of the game, but like, is that really going to happen? Probably not. Like,
it's possible, honestly.
No, I don't think so. And that's why I'm really intrigued to see if Yannick Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz, because I know they're fairly good friends at the early stage of their career. Is that going to be happening when they're going to be playing major finals, like, you know, 2-3 times a year, as we might see happen? I feel like probably not, right? So it's going to be very interesting. As far as I know, yeah, they used to be Andy and Novak used to be very, very good friends in their juniors. And as all kind of like relationships happen at this level, it's probably, you know, moved into more of a kind of colleague relationship, which is great. And then, of course, yeah, Andy just like makes these comments, which some people love, some people hate. Obviously, as an Andy fan and a Novak fan, I love it. I love it. Just bring a bit of spice to Andy. Let's do it. But yeah, as far as I know, you know, they don't hate each other, which is great.
I mean, I know that Judy loves Novak,
for sure,
and has been the case forever, which is amazing to see, honestly. And she's been supporting him, you know, well, ever since he entered the tennis circuit. So that's lovely. Question from Armina: do you find Novak and Andy similar in some way? Can you talk about it more? Maybe specify some areas on and off the court when we can compare them. P.S. Novak is my main love in tennis, but Andy comes second. So big Andy Murray fan here, enjoying your tweets. So thank you, Armina.
Loving these questions as well. So I really appreciate the couple of people who sent in some messages. Yeah, like, I think you can definitely compare them on the court for sure. Their attitudes on the court, I think everyone can see that. They're both very temperamental,
feisty.
I would say Andy more so, right? Let's be honest here.
For sure.
Especially recently. Andy is just, I mean, like, you could argue going a little bit over the top, even for Andy Murray. Like,
sometimes, yeah.
I think he's just kind of losing it a little bit at the moment. Kind of like mentally, he's just not there, and it's spilling over on the court. Novak, of course, you see that too. Again, I loved it a lot. I really appreciated Novak's comment on smashing rackets the other day in the press conference. I think it was saying that he was like, I do this to kind of get all my anger out, and then
he was talking about crying. I think that was those, you know, games roundtable, however you want to call them, when they were spinning the wheels and answering questions, and he basically said, you know, I'm smashing rackets, I'm not crying. So that's how I, you know.
Yeah, for sure. That's how he deals with it. And I need to stress, I think, you know, not to get into like super serious like territory here, but I would much prefer to see players like smashing rackets, screaming and yelling, than doing what, like, for example, Andrei Rublev does. If you watch,
that's
like smashing rackets against his like arms.
He's gonna injure himself. Honestly.
Yeah, he's like kind of like cutting himself almost like by like smashing his racket onto his arms and his legs and stuff. And it's just, at that point, you're like, right, this is getting a bit intense here. You know, what's been done and what's his team saying to him? Like, come on, we need to be kind of making sure that he's not going to do himself an injury, because he might well do, you know. And I really don't have any issues. Like, Novak gave a great answer when he said, you know, I smash a racket to like let out my frustration, but then very quickly he was like, I wouldn't recommend that every like player does it, or like every child does it, because I think there was probably an element of the PR in there, like of kids coming home to their mums with a smash racket. Well,
Smashing racket.
Novak said it should do it. So I think Novak was very quick to be like, I wouldn't recommend doing it. But I really have no issue with like these players smashing rackets or like letting.
Why do you think that a lot of people hate it, and why do you think that, you know, even, you know, media, and I want to say tennis establishment or whatever, that Pavi loves to say this, and,
We'll get Pavi on
and, and I love Pavi. But why do you think they try to push that, you know, narrative about how smashing rackets is something that should be forbidden? Yeah, frowned upon. Yeah. Why?
Yeah, it's an interesting situation. I feel like, you know, maybe it goes back to that kind of idea of tennis being a very kind of upper class kind of pompous sport, you know, and like, only fancy people do this, and fancy people wouldn't smash their rackets or let out their angers or frustration. Like they you know, this is a gentleman's sport and it should be a prim and proper kind of sport, which is very outdated, of course. But you know, part of it's that, and then part of it's also the idea that like people don't like seeing, like people feel like they don't want to be seeing like kind of like people letting out emotions, like negative emotions. Like I guess like for me though, like I love it. I love like seeing these like very, very human kind of side to these god level athletes, right? But a lot of people watching, they just like hate to see that. And of course, like you can, yeah, I'm sure Pavi would love this. If you're going to compare it to what like people felt about Roger Federer and Rafa Nadal, you had Roger, who was a very kind of prim and proper kind of athlete, you know, barely ever, I think, although there was that one time they did smash a racket, that was always raised. And then you have Nadal, who is a very kind of disciplined man, and as far as I'm aware, like has never smashed a racket in
no, I think he hasn't.
Yeah, and that's just the way he is, which again, no issue with that whatsoever either, right? But I think that's also part of it as well. You have these two guys who are like at the top of the game and barely ever did that, and then you have, you know, Novak and Andy coming along and like ripping up these tennis rackets. Novak maybe doing it like every match sometimes just to like let out a burst of anger, and it's so fine to do that. I think people are like, oh, you know, they shouldn't be doing that. These tennis rackets could be going to little kids who can't afford a tennis racket. These tennis rackets are made specifically for the player, you know. At no point are these tennis rackets going into shops to be sold to kids. Like at no point is that ever an idea. And then a lot of the time you see Novak handing over a smash racket to a fan in the crowd after, and like, brilliant. That's so good to see, right? And I just don't like. I don't think there's any kind of correlation in that. I think. People are like, oh, but like these, you know, poor kids watch it. Like, yeah, okay, that's the time that their parents are like, oh, you know, that's nice to see, isn't it? Don't smash your racket. Like, that's a point for the parents to be like, oh, this is a learning experience where we're like, that's great for them to do because they get the rackets for free. You're not going to do that with your tennis racket. Great, you know, it's not hard. But like, we at no point are any of us ever going to understand the level of the pressure that these athletes are under. No. So. You know, I just don't have any issue seeing it whatsoever, and also it's cool. It's cool to see it. Like for me, it's cool to see like
emotional people. Against Rune, when he broke two rackets and then stared down at the camera.
That was
ice cold.
Yeah, by the way, honestly, for my experience, I have never smashed the racket, but just because, not because I was watching players who never did, because my mother and my father wouldn't have bought me another one. so if I had smashed the racket, I wouldn't have played tennis anymore.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the idea. That's the point that your parents step in and you're like, right, okay, your favorite player.
And then, of course, there can be an exaggeration, in my opinion, because I can understand. You can argue if a player is smashing a couple of rackets every match he plays. games. But it's not the case in this, here we are talking about a case in which there have been some moments. I remember, for example, people shocked about that clip after, it was maybe after French Open, Sabalenka or Wimbledon, I don't remember. No, after the US Open final was, I believe. I don't remember anymore.
In the locker room.
Yeah,
right?
she was not on the court, and she
Smashed three
smashed
rackets,
a
I think.
racket, three
Sure.
rackets. I don't remember. It's a thing that can happen. Nobody
let
is
them be
saying that
people,
it's
man.
amazing, but if it happens, I mean, I don't understand. Yeah, all this moral policy, always, oh my God.
Sure.
Wh-
I think
Go
just to throw it as well, like it's like it comes back to like sport being an entertainment, right? Like we all love to see these big things happening. A player smashes a racket, a crowd goes wild, they start booing. We've seen Novak smash rackets, get booed, and then Novak's just like, let's go.
Yeah,
I'm winning.
leading the orchestra.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, like great entertainment, and that is that's sport at the end of the day.
Yeah,
So I
and
think
I'm not even against the crowd booing at times, I have
No?
to say, because it's
No,
part
of
of the
course.
show. It's part of
Yes.
the crowd is there, and I mean,
Yeah.
there are cases in which, but if it's just some boost, all the players, fortunately, I say fortunately because, but have, acknowledged that, yeah, there was, more support, for example, for the home player. There have been some boos at times, but the crowd has been quite respectful in acclaiming the players of court, and acknowledging good shots, and that's, in my opinion, the only thing that matters. Then if one thing happens and the crowd boos, it's also because the crowd wants to have fun. So if Djokovic does that, put your finger into his near his ear,
Can't hear you.
and the crowd starts booing more, but because they are having fun, because
Yeah.
Novak
They
is,
want to be engaged. The crowd wants to be engaged as well.
yeah, and Novak there, he's challenging the crowd, and so the crowd responds by doing even more. But in my opinion, it's not because they hate one player or another. It's because they are here and they want to, they need to be engaged, and they have fun in this way, and it's part of the show. If I pay more than 100 euros for watching one single tennis match, then I want to have fun doing that.
Yeah, but Scott, I wanted to ask you, buddy. We were talking previously about Novak's future and possible retirement. When do you think Andy is gonna hang up his racket?
Oh, still be doing this. Yeah, I mean, I think I feel like I've been saying we're in the end game for Andy for a while now, and yet he's still trudging himself out there. I do feel like there is an argument to be made that this next year that we're seeing 2024 might be his last year on the tour, like at least full time. Like there is maybe a chance that he plays this next season and then plays a handful of events in 2025 or retires at Wimbledon 2025. I don't think he'll retire. I don't think he'll retire at Wimbledon 2024. I don't think. But you know what? If I think the one of the more difficult aspects of being a massive Andy Murray fan is that Andy Murray is a very, very changeable man. Like he changes his mind all the time, to the extent that like when it came to his retirement, I don't know if Novak fans listening would know about Andy's situation in terms of like when he had that press conference in Australia back in 2019, like he did pretty much decide he was retiring then, and then changed his mind. He literally just changed his mind one day when he was like, researching, maybe I could play with a metal hip here. And he just pretty much changed his mind. Like, and that is like, that's always stuck in my head. Like whenever Andy loses a match in the fashions that we've seen a lot of over the last like year or, 2 years, in the first, second round, that, I've always been like, oh no, is he literally going to come off the court and be like, what, that's it? And part of me thinks that might happen for him one day very soon. But realistically, in my heart of hearts, I do probably feel like next year could well be his last full year on the tour. Like, you know, of course, I want to see Andy playing through until 2020. Your prediction about Novak sticking in my head here. But, I do see Andy retiring before Novak for sure. Of course, I think he probably
would be an amazing a gold medal match in LA in 2028.
Would be lovely to see that. Just don't know if Andy's head mistaken it. It's interesting because I've been talking to my partner who's you know, steadily learning about tennis through going out with me. But I've kind of been telling a lot about Andy, and then just recently a lot about Novak as well. I mean, it's the fact that these two athletes are like a week apart in age, and really we're so close. And then you've got Andy with a metal hip, kind of like being injured, being brutal, like at the end of his career, and then you've got Novak, who's still just his god, like no unprecedented man, like. And it's just so interesting to see, like, you know, of course, on like a neutral level, just seeing these two players at like just very different parts of their career now, because that is how sport and life works. And it's fascinating to watch. But I do. Yeah, if I'm being honest with myself, I wouldn't be surprised at all if this 2024 was going to be the last full season of Andy Murray. We'll see how it goes, but yeah, I wouldn't be surprised though.
Hopefully, you know, everything will be cool. And
yeah, but one mistake that, in my opinion, nobody should make is that letting, you know, the comparison downplay at any level all what Andy Murray has achieved in his career. Because, you know, I know that these players, especially Novak right now, but also, you know, with the 20 and more slams, also Nadal and Federer have changed the perception people have about what is having a great career, a success career, being called a legend, an all-time great. You know, having even half the career Andy Murray has had, in my opinion, would be enough to be called a super successful player. Because people, these past years, people are a little bit forgetting how it was and how much Andy Murray has achieved as a player, and in my opinion has you know, really has a spot in the all-time elite for all what he did, and also in a period and an era against all these, you know, these great players, more or less, you know, all in their prime at the same time. Murray achieved incredible things, both in best of 5 and especially best of 3, because he has so many Masters events, and being number 1 in that era, it takes a lot. So it, in my opinion, has to be acknowledged.
Yeah, I'll just jump in and just add to that very briefly. I'll always say that, like, Andy Murray did everything that the British media, especially, I don't know if many people watching now would be familiar with the British media, I'm not sure, but they were very, very brutal about Andy Murray early in his career, and then very steadily.
Why?
I think because he was, like, you know, he was quite a cool, like, you know, they went through an era of like having Tim Henman, and Tim Henman was a very, very kind of, you know, posh kind of country boy from England, and then Andy Murray came along from Scotland and was a very kind of like dour, like, well, like very like dour, kind of like grumpy, kind of grungy, kind of unshaven, kind of like kid with like big kind of curly hair, a bit like this, but and came along and was just like this moody guy, kid, really. And like the British media really struggled to kind of adapt to him. And then just steadily like tended to warm to him, but like still wouldn't be fully on board with him until he really kind of did what they wanted, which was win Wimbledon. You know, that's what they were asking him to do for years and years and years. And then, you know, eventually he did that. And then, you know, he got his Olympic medal. He reached number 1 in the world. He won Wimbledon again just to make sure that they remembered, you know. And
won gold again.
He won gold again. Yeah, he won a US Open title in there as well. You know, he did all these things that the British media specifically wanted him to do. And yeah, I think you can. You know what? Like Carlos Alcaraz might well go on to win more major titles, and Andy Murray's already won away, and he's only 20, so I think that could well happen. and it might well happen that other players do as well. You know, when we move out of this so-called golden age of British men's tennis, as we're moving kind of beyond the big three. But Andy won his titles at a time when the competition at the top will probably never live through an era like that us personally, unless, you know, who knows. But
I don't think so, honestly.
Yeah,
we are just at times too focused on doing too many comparisons. Sometimes it's not worthy. Marko, can I ask a question to Scott?
Of course, man.
Just fire away.
Is the 2012 Olympic final the best performance Murray had, in your opinion? Or there's another one you would like to mention?
Sure. You know what? It's I'm gonna be really interesting here. Like, I think if you're talking purely from like matches that Andy won, like purely from like a kind of perspective of like, you know, is that the best performance of Andy's career? Like that match that he won, you know, in like straight sets against a player. Yeah, I mean, I think you could argue maybe that one. I think you could also argue the 2016 Olympic finals against Juan Martín del Potro. That's one of my highlights of Andy's career for me. Like just epic tennis at all points and at the highlight, like, you know, real tip top. But, and I swear you can go listen to many episodes of Murray Musings, and I bring this up all the time. My personal favorite Andy Murray match is one that he did lose, and it was losing to Novak Djokovic. He lost it in the 2012 semi-finals of the Australian Open.
That's my favorite Novak's victory already.
Yeah, such a good burn. I personally think though that without that match, I don't know. Like, I think Andy played that match and realized coming off of it, yeah, he was disappointed, but he realized he could really like he could beat these players at that point. He really could with just a little bit more work at the end of the match. I just think that match for me was just, I've never seen Andy play better than in that 2012 Australian Open match. And he did lose. He lost it to Novak. And again, that kind of, you know, is a testament to how good Novak is that he took the very, very best of Andy Murray and still beat him. But
yeah, by the way, what we were saying about if there was Novak Djokovic, what would Andy Murray do in Australia?
I mean, it's just it's another heartbreaking loss of Novak, right? But it just for me, that match for me always stands out. I go back and watch the highlights of that match a lot. Yes, I skip the end because I don't want to see him give it away. But it's just such a good match. It gets overlooked a lot because of that final, of course, the epic final with Novak and Rafa in the 2012 Australian Open final. Like, the semi-final gets overlooked, but the fact that Novak Djokovic beat Andy Murray in the semi-final in 5 hours, and then beat Rafa Nadal in the final in 6 hours. What in the world? Don't know what was going on in his head those 3 days, but good lord. But yeah, for me, that match is just so good. My two favorite players just battling it out at their best. Like, if you haven't seen it, go watch the highlights. So, that's one that I would circle for me.
Yeah, not everyone knows that I have an Andy Murray racket.
Do you actually?
Not here, but I will show you. I promise that I will show you.
Send me
2016 in Rome.
Oh, interesting. You actually have his racket, really? He gave it to you? Really? Oh my God!
Yeah,
send me the photo.
I will say it. I will say now. I am trying to, you know,
how much? How much?
I know that I'm trying to get a job into tennis. So right now I can't do that anymore. But I was there at the final with the Serbian flag.
Oh my God!
Wow. Kudos to Andy for doing that.
And Murray gave me the racket, and oh my God! For me, it hasn't been the same for me in that you know, I had already had the pleasure to had some rally sets at a kids day, and yeah, it was, you know, a tournament, probably the only time in the end I've been happy that the result was that. Because for me, it helped me, you know, live a great and emotional moment. So yeah, I have this nice story related to Murray.
Yeah. By the way, Scott, but do you know that Mario played Carlos Alcaraz when he was a kid?
Did you actually?
Yeah.
Did you? Really? How was he back then?
Well, I mean, 2 years difference can make a difference. I have to be honest. when we are when we are at that age. So I will admit that I had a pretty good level of tennis when I was a kid, and then I had to stop for external forces and reasons. But yeah, you could see that he already was showing a level that was par to to the guys 2 years older that we were. And so yeah, I lived some nice experiences, and that's why probably I'm also a little bit biased in judging this generation, because it's a generation which is close to me, which I remember. I saw some of them when we were young, when we are young, but when we were kids, let's say like that. So yeah, it's nice and funny, and I have to admit that having right now which is 36 days younger than me, and he's there playing a big final against Djokovic. For me, it's from one hand it's a little bit hard, the other hand it's great to watch. I like that.
I can imagine.
Yeah. One last thing, Scott, buddy, and I'm leaving you. Trust me, I promise. Your cover photo on Twitter. I was researching it on Google on Murray Musings, and I think I found out like a couple of days ago that Gael Monfils was doing some, I don't know, podcast, live streams, whatever, for the ATP, and Andy Murray was on, and they were like, let's invite some fans. First of all, can you tell me, because I want to know, and then our listeners the story behind that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll give you a quick rundown of it. Was it back in 2019, 2018? God, the year. No, it was 2020. It was 2020. Because it was during COVID. That's what it was. When everyone was on webcams and everyone was doing Zoom calls. It was. Like it was during the ATP Finals that year, where bizarrely, just a few days before the ATP Finals that year, Gael Monfils announced that he was going to be doing like a live stream on his Twitch channel. I think he still has it. I don't know if he does many Twitch streams though. I think he plays quite a bit of video games on there. Said he was going to be doing one every day of the week, and he was going to be doing it with Andy Murray. And so, well, I have to be tuning into this. And I remember watching, I think it was like the first one, and I was like, they get a guest on. They get a guest on here. Just a fan. They get a fan to come on at the end to just ask like a question to Andy or Novak or whoever. And I was like, I wonder how you do that. I wonder how you get on. I don't know how you get on to be on the show. And then basically I did a bit of like twittering, like searching. And basically the idea was that you kind of sent a DM to kind of the social media manager of Gael. Like Gael Monfils has like a social media manager who like all of his Twitch channels. And I sent like basically a DM and was like, listen, I'd love to be considered to appear on this, just to like ask a question or whatever. And also, I've got a cardboard cutout of Andy Murray, because I do have a cardboard cutout of Andy. It's now very, very broken and very disintegrated. I got it back in 2011. All right, it's literally faltering. It's like falling to pieces now. But I've got this cardboard cutout. I'd love to show Andy Murray that, and he loved that. Like this guy was super nice. He was like, that would be great content. Like he obviously had a manager's mind, social media manager's mind. He was like, this will make for good content. And yeah, basically, yeah, that was what happened. I remember like the next night, it was like, oh my gosh, I'm so nervous. I was sitting in like a kind of waiting kind of like room just to be let in. I was seeing Andy and Gael chatting there, and then Gael was something like, oh, and we do believe we have a young man tonight who's coming on to join us to chit chat with us. And then I appeared, and I was chatting with Andy Murray and Gael Monfils, very much like we're doing now, and it was very. Like I don't remember. I think I was on it for maybe 2 minutes in all, 2.5 minutes. I asked a question. I can't remember what it was, honestly, it was all such a blur, but I was so nervous. I was like shaking. And yeah, I did show though that's my cover photo on my Twitter profile. I did show a cardboard cutout of Andy Murray to Andy
What
Murray.
was his reaction?
The reaction was hilarious. Yeah, I'll find the clip of it. And I'll post it again. But basically, Gail Monfils just crying with laughter.
Yeah.
And Andy is just like, Andy's definitely thinking in it. He's definitely like, hey, this weirdo.
Come on, man. You're his number one online fan.
Like, yeah, what's going on here? But he took it very well as well. He was great. Both of them were really, really good. Like, and it's a life highlight for me for sure. Getting a chance to chat with obviously Andy and Gail. Like, I can't say enough good words about Gail Monfils as well. Such a charismatic athlete. He was so good on that chit chat. And yeah, it was a lovely experience, but I honestly don't remember a lot of it because it was such a blur and I was so nervous about it. But yeah, I'll find the video and I'll post it again. It's out there somewhere. But
have you ever tried to contact Andy to get him on the pod or?
Yeah, we haven't actually specifically reached out. I do have.
Is Judy following the Murray Musings? I don't know if she's following you.
Yeah, Judy's been on Murray Musings before. We've interviewed her on the podcast before. It was at the start of last year, maybe, or the year before that. And yeah, I've been lucky enough to meet Judy in person. She was brilliant with me. She gave me tickets to watch Andy on the centre court at Wimbledon on my birthday, like last year. Nice. Yeah, it was great. It was on my birthday. I was there on my birthday, and I got tickets. The interesting story behind that, it was actually I got grounds passes from Laura Robson, who's a British tennis player who's now I think a commentator. She was great. She sent me a DM when she saw I basically tweeted being like, oh, I didn't get Wimbledon tickets this year. You know, on the day that everyone's like, oh, I got Wimbledon tickets. I was just like, I couldn't afford Wimbledon tickets. It was just a joke, but Laura saw it and sent me a message, and she was great, and she got me to Wimbledon. And then Judy, because she'd been on the podcast, she chatted with me before, she met me in person, and she gave me tickets to watch Andy. So she's great. Like you brought her up earlier about. She's always got good words to say about Novak, and I think part of that is a maternal thing as well. She's obviously seen. She's I think very close to Novak's parents, and yeah, she's obviously seen Novak grow up as well. So I think she, in some ways, very proud of Novak as well, I would imagine. But yeah, obviously the end goal of Murray Musings over on Murray Musings HQ is to try and get Andy on at some point. He has appeared on a podcast before, so I do know that he does podcasts. Maybe send Judy a wee DM or a wee text at some point and try and get him on.
You haven't already.
Not officially. I haven't wanted to cross that boundary yet. We're building up, and we're kind of we're seeing.
What about Jamie?
Where do we go after getting Andy on the podcast? Of course, you guys will be wanting to get Novak on at some point, right? Like you'll be wanting that to happen. Can you imagine? How you'd be?
That's one of the goals.
Yeah,
we'll see if it happens. Hopefully next year. Honestly. I'm shooting big. Yeah, fingers crossed.
I still have to get the first pick.
Yeah.
I have to start from the lowest point.
By the way, Mario. Yeah, this is something between Mario and me. Sorry to jump in. Are you going to Rome at the beginning of December? Because I will.
I can. I mean, I can.
I have something from you, with Novak's name on it. Well, that's a small gift for everything that you've been doing. For everything that you've been doing with me in the last couple of weeks.
So I will be there.
Okay, so book it. From December 4th to 10th.
There you go.
Okay,
be there, and we'll meet NoleFam in Rome, hopefully. Okay, that would be it for today's episode. I want to thank both of you guys, especially Scott for being with us. And I mean, we hit 2-hour mark. I just want to say one thing. This has been by far the favorite episode I've ever done. Honest to God. I mean, it was fun. We sounded intelligent. We had fun. I hope you guys have fun with me as well. First of all, this was the first episode that not only did I not have the time, but I didn't prepare anything. Literally, I usually, have, a ton of papers and, stats, facts, quotes. I usually, write down an intro and an outro. This was the first time that I didn't do any of those things. And I think it went it went pretty well. Hopefully, I don't screw up this outro. So thank you guys again. To the people who are watching us, of course, I have to repeat it again. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel, follow us on social media, etc. All the links will be in the description, as well as Scott's. Subscribe to the Murray Musings podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or whatever gets your podcast. Or maybe it's only those two platforms. If it is,
It's a few.
yeah. So whenever you get your podcast, please trust me. Trust me when I don't say this often. Follow Scott on Twitter. Again, I'll repeat it. My favorite online tennis Twitter personality. So that would be it. I really hope that you guys enjoying this episode as the three of us did. I know that we didn't talk at all about, Andy and Novak's, matches, clashes, whatever. I said that to Scott a couple of days ago.
Too much.
When I plus that, but we're gonna do that eventually. But yeah, this was supposed to be a celebratory podcast of Novak winning another ATP Finals, and basically us, getting to know each other. We'll do that episode definitely next year, maybe before Australian Open, maybe after Australian Open. We'll see, but we'll definitely do it. Again, guys, thank you so much. Scott,
Thank you,
buddy. You've been amazing. Mario, I'll see you, buddy, next week. We'll try to get another guest. Hopefully she'll say yes. I think she will. I'm hoping, at least. I told you I'm an idealist. I love to fantasize. I'm not that down to earth. So yeah, that's all. Thank you guys, and I'll see you next week.